Morning, Les.
Good morning, David.
How are you this morning?
Hunky dory.
Well, we're both having a very busy week, a lot going on. But I want to talk about today is something that's been a huge problem for me. And this is what's so crazy about life in general. So I personally found out that I have a tremendous anxiety when things are going well. And so we all work hard for things to be better, but when we actually get there, we don't know what to do. I'll never forget a patient I had in Sun Valley many years ago. He was about maybe 50 years old. He had just sold his business for $40 million, $40 million. And he was in my office in tears, just absolutely in tears and just ridden with anxiety. And I'm going, what? I'm going, excuse me? And so I just had no idea at that time about chronic pain. I didn't know why a person would do that, but he didn't know what to do. So we all get busy, we get anxious, frustrated, reactive, all these things to keep coming on.
Yeah.
We're not that comfortable, but when things actually are quiet, we don't know what to do. And I've noticed that pattern over and over and over again in my life. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. As psychologists, we have fancy, silly names to put to these things. Sometimes we self-sabotage because we don't feel worthy of healing from pain, being successful, or even receiving love. And it's almost like a paradoxical effect. When we want, and then we get, there's this paradoxical effect, which means it's like the opposite. Now that we have what we have, or we're starting to experience something good, there's something inside that says this will end. So let me just kind of put a kibosh on it. Let's just kind of stop it. And that is just part of being human, is this paradoxical effect.
But it's sort of perverse. I mean, you work so hard to quote, be happy, do what you want to do, then you actually achieve what you want. I mean, I'll never forget also, before I went through my horrible burnout, I had a nice
Mm.
practice, my wife and I were doing well, had a beautiful kid. And so I'd achieved everything I had wanted and was told that I needed to be successful. And I was having crippling anxiety. Again, I didn't know why.
Yeah.
And so again, that explains that effect. But we get distracted by all this stuff. The other point I want to highlight today is that Steve Porges has taught us that one reason we can't give up our anger and frustration is that we don't know how to be vulnerable.
Right.
And when you're with yourself, you get to see all this stuff that you may not particularly care for, which, by the way, happens to be part of being human. And I was so attached to my, I'll use the word veneer or facade of being accomplished, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I wasn't necessarily connected to myself. And part of my facade was being a compassionate doctor. But I was actually attached to being a compassionate doctor than really actually being able to listen to you and be truly compassionate. I mean, I was pretty good, but I
Yeah.
wasn't really connecting to myself. And you can't really connect to your patients until you're connecting to yourself.
Yeah.
But connecting to yourself may not be as pleasant as you think.
Yeah. And I think that's really well said. Two things that comes to mind, what you just said. So one is that I tell my residents, I used to train a lot of residents every year and some practicum students. I used to tell them this. You can only take a patient as far as you've gone yourself.
That's wow.
Yeah. So it's really, really powerful
That's
because
sort of
it's easy.
intense.
It is. Of course, I see my residents' eyes kind of light up, saying, because we love to preach, but are we practicing as providers, as practitioners? Are we doing what we're telling our patients to do? And when you can work on the most vulnerable parts and recognize your patterns, David and I talk a lot about patterns, family patterns, interactions, things like that that trigger us. We need to know our patterns. And sometimes when you don't do the true work, you cannot have the confidence to help the next person. And that's the clinician, and that's the clinician in us. The second point I wanted to make is this: is vulnerability is part of the process of healing old wounds of love, relationship stuff, chronic pain. So we need to kind of move towards vulnerability because it is the passage through the healing. We don't want to feel vulnerable because we don't like feeling this weakness of feeling over, flooded with emotions and thoughts. But what we want to tell people today, David, is that we don't have to be overloaded with these thoughts and emotions. There are ways to actually help ourselves get vulnerable without feeling overloaded.
Well, also in the animal kingdom, every species, every level of existence, there's zero rewards for being vulnerable. And we're part of the
Yeah.
animal kingdom, right? But
Right.
the essence of human relationships is vulnerability. So we have a huge paradox here. So we're hardwired to not be vulnerable, and then you're in a competitive business world. So we're all competing for the planet's resources. So from a survival standpoint, there's not a reward for being vulnerable except with your tribe.
Yeah.
That comes in. So we're not really rewarded for being vulnerable from a instinctual survival perspective, yet we have to cultivate vulnerability to have rich relationships. And of course, when all of us are busy, and I will say one thing, because this is a whole huge topic here,
Yeah.
that I want to leave some people with some thoughts today, is that the essence of relationships is awareness and being vulnerable. And anger blocks it. You cannot have anger and awareness in the same room. It cannot happen. Yet we don't know what to do. So we actually achieve peace and calm and vulnerability. We feel very uncomfortable, so we click back into our old patterns.
Yeah.
So we call it self-sabotage, but really maybe deeper than that, maybe just that normal survival mechanism. So being with yourself is a learned skill. And Dr. Arya, my guru, is going to teach me how to do that right now.
Being vulnerable to yourself is a form of validation. It's like a child who falls. And when we dismiss that sense of vulnerability in us, it's like dismissing that child inside of it that says, oh, get on with it, suck it up. When we do that, it perpetuates suffering. And so we're all about reducing unnecessary suffering with the skills. So here's a skill for everyone. One of the simplest ways to do this, David, can you just do it with me? Is
Okay.
sometimes when we feel flooded with a thought, emotion, or physical sensation, we just don't know what to do. So let's get out of our head and into our bodies. And one way to do this is, David, do it with me. Feel like a spotlight. Bring your attention, your mind's attention on top of your feet.
Okay.
Now, good. Now gently wiggle your toes and
Okay.
then move it back and forth. You're a cat lover, so you know what kneading is, what cats do. So move it back and forth and wear a soft, gentle smile. Good.
Surgeons,
Now,
surgeons don't smile.
right. So you're a unique surgeon. We'll talk about that later on. Stay focused, David. So feel your feet, feel the top of it, gently move your toes. Now draw your attention to the seat that cradles you right now. Then notice the breath, where you feel the breath in the body, nose or belly.
Okay. My
Just
belly.
focus on it and we're done. That's just a nice way to navigate grounding yourself in great simplicity while you feel what you feel. So you're kind of creating some space as if you're being in the middle of the tornado. This takes practice, and with time you can lengthen it, and you'll notice that you become less reactive and more responsive to the
Right.
vulnerability.
Well, and again, which we keep teaching, the theme seems to be more clear to me, and this is where these talks have been helpful to me, is that the mind and body are a unit. There's really no separation at all, but our consciousness gets in the way. Our consciousness gets in the way of connecting your body and mind. So we get disconnected. And what all these tools are doing, which you just did, is that I get to feel. And so I get to feel physical things. Then I also get to feel emotions. Am I reading this correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. And is it, wait a minute. Oh, it's coming. Here we go. To feel better, you have to get better at feeling.
Oh, sorry. To feel better, you have to get better at feeling. That is your lessism for the day. And I don't have a Davidism to match that one. That one's pretty good. To feel better, you have to get better at feeling. Got it. All right. That's your thought for the day. So just try that exercise with a bright light on my feet, wiggle my toes, try to smile, and feel where all that settles. And you're training yourself to feel. Even when, so I also have suggested just spend some time being quiet. So while you're being quiet and being with yourself, maybe just a minute or two, and you don't have to force it. You don't have to force yourself to be uncomfortable. In fact, you want to stay comfortable while you do it.
Yeah.
If it's just 30 seconds, fine. It's 5 minutes, fine. So just learn to be with yourself and feel today. So this is Dynamic Healing Moments, and with Dr. Arya and myself. And you can find me on the docjourney.com. And then you'll notice on the Facebook Live announcement today that there's a workshop that you're putting on Saturday, Les?
It's Sunday, this Sunday, it's a
Sunday.
June 6th. It's a free webinar just to kind of hear about how could you reverse chronic pain, just the simple talk stuff that we've talked about. So the link is in my YouTube channel.
Okay.
And so if they go to YouTube and then type in mindfulness, that's with a Y, and the link is there. So I've just uploaded something recently, a couple hours ago.
So maybe I should change the announcements from Saturday to Sunday. Would that be good? That'd be good
That would
stuff.
be great. Yeah, thanks.
All right. Well, Les, thank you. I always learn a few things myself here as we talk. And so thank you. Great day.
Likewise, David.
All right. Have a good day.
Have a good day, everyone.